I never expected to fall in love with my roommate. Honestly, I didn't even expect to like him that much when we first met. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how my roommate's unusual sleeping habit changed everything between us. It all started about 6 months ago when my previous roommate moved out unexpectedly to live with his girlfriend. I was left scrambling to find someone to split the rent with before the first of the month. That's when a mutual friend suggested Alex might be looking for a place. I'd met Alex a few times at parties and group hangouts. Tall, with dark curly hair that always seemed perfectly messy, and these intense green eyes that somehow managed to look both serious and mischievous at the same time. He was quiet, but not shy, the kind of person who didn't say much, but when he did, everyone listened. I wasn't sure if we'd be compatible as roommates. I'm more of a morning person, somewhat organized, and I like having friends over for game nights. But the rent was due, and Alex seemed responsible enough, so I took a chance. The day he moved in, I realized how little I actually knew about him. He didn't have much, just a few boxes of books, clothes, and an impressive collection of vinyl records. I travel light, he explained with a shrug and that half-smile that would eventually become so familiar to me. Our apartment wasn't anything special. A two-bedroom in an older building with creaky floors and windows that rattled when the wind blew. But it had character, with exposed brick walls in the living room and a small balcony that caught the afternoon sun perfectly. We each had our own bedroom, but we shared the bathroom, kitchen, and living space. At first, we were just two people occupying the same space, polite but distant, learning each other's routines and quirks. I noticed early on that Alex seemed perpetually tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he'd often be up at odd hours of the night. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to get a glass of water and find him sitting on the couch, staring out the window or reading by the dim light of a single lamp. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd just say, "Can't sleep. It's normal for me," and change the subject. As the weeks passed, we gradually became more comfortable around each other. We discovered a shared love for obscure indie films and started having movie nights every Thursday. He'd laugh at my terrible cooking attempts, but would step in before I completely ruined dinner. I learned that he was a graphic designer who worked mostly from home, which explained why he could function despite his apparent lack of sleep. He learned that I was an elementary school teacher who brought home stories about my students that made him laugh until he couldn't breathe. Looking back, I think I was already falling for him then, but I didn't recognize it. I'd always considered myself open to connections with anyone, regardless of gender, but I'd never actually been with a guy before. And besides, Alex had never given any indication that he saw me as anything other than a friend and roommate. So I pushed those feelings aside, telling myself I was just happy to have found a roommate I genuinely enjoyed spending time with. The night everything changed started like any other. It was a Friday in late autumn, with rain pattering against the windows and a chill in the air that had us both wearing hoodies inside. We'd ordered takeout and were halfway through a documentary about deep-sea creatures when Alex suddenly muted the TV. He looked more exhausted than I'd ever seen him, his shoulders slumped and his eyes bloodshot. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear him. "And it's going to sound weird, and you can absolutely say no, and I'll completely understand if you do." My heart started racing. Was he moving out? Had I done something wrong? Was he sick? 1,000 possibilities raced through my mind, none of them close to what he actually said next. "I haven't had a full night's sleep in over 3 years," he confessed, looking down at his hands. "I've tried everything, medication, meditation, therapy, even those ridiculous ASMR videos. Nothing works. Except," he paused, and I could see him struggling to continue. "Except what?" I prompted gently. He took a deep breath. "Except when I fall asleep with my head on someone's chest. The sound of another person's heartbeat, the rise and fall of their breathing, it's the only thing that helps. My ex used to let me sleep that way, but since we broke up, I can't sleep. And I'm so tired, Ethan. I'm so tired all the time." I sat there, stunned into silence. Of all the things I thought he might say, this wasn't even on the list. Alex misinterpreted my silence and quickly started backpedaling. "Forget I said anything. It's weird, I know. I shouldn't have brought it up. Just forget." "No," I interrupted. No, don't forget it. I was just surprised. If it helps you sleep. We could try it. If you want." The look of relief and gratitude on his face made something in my chest tighten. Really? You wouldn't mind? I shrugged, trying to act casual while my heart was doing somersaults. What are friends for, right? If it helps you sleep, it's worth a try. That night, after we'd both gone through our usual bedtime routines, Alex hesitantly appeared at my bedroom door. He looked so vulnerable standing there in his sleep pants and faded t-shirt that I felt a surge of protectiveness I hadn't expected. I scooted over in my bed and lifted the covers in invitation. He slipped in beside me, his movements cautious and uncertain. How do we? I started to ask. Is it okay if I? He said at the same time. We both laughed, breaking some of the tension. Then, moving slowly, he positioned himself with his head resting on my chest, one arm draped lightly across my stomach. I was hyper-aware of every point of contact between us, the weight of his head, the warmth of his arm, the way our legs were almost but not quite touching. I could smell his shampoo, something vaguely citrusy, and feel his breath through my t-shirt. Is this okay? He whispered. Yeah. I whispered back, surprised to find that it was true. Despite the strangeness of the situation, there was something that felt right about having him there. Is it helping? I think so, he murmured, his voice already sounding drowsy. Your heart's beating really fast, though. I laughed softly. Yeah, well, this isn't exactly a normal roommate activity. He chuckled, the sound vibrating against my chest. Thank you, Ethan. Really. No problem. Get some sleep, Alex. Within minutes, his breathing had deepened and evened out. He was asleep. Really, truly asleep. Probably for the first time in weeks. I lay awake much longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what was happening and why it felt so significant. Eventually, lulled by his steady breathing and the comforting weight of him against me, I drifted off too. I woke the next morning to find Alex still sound asleep, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen before. I carefully extracted myself without waking him and went to make coffee, my mind swirling with confused thoughts and feelings. When he finally emerged from my room around noon, looking more rested than I'd ever seen him, the smile he gave me was so bright and genuine that it made all my confusion seem unimportant. I slept for 14 hours, he said, sounding amazed. I haven't done that since. I can't even remember. That's great, I said, meaning it despite the strange fluttering in my stomach. Coffee. We didn't talk about what would happen that night or the next, but when evening came, there was a moment of eye contact, a silent question, and I nodded. He joined me in my bed again, and again he fell asleep almost immediately with his head on my chest. This time, I allowed myself to gently rest my hand on his back, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. It became our new normal. During the day, we were just roommates and friends. We cooked together, watched movies, complained about work. But at night, he would come to my room, and we would share a closeness that went beyond anything I'd experienced before. It wasn't sexual, at least not overtly, but there was an intimacy to it that couldn't be denied. After about 2 weeks of this arrangement, something shifted. We were making dinner together, moving around the kitchen in the easy, synchronized way we'd developed, when Alex reached past me for a spice and his hand lingered on my waist just a moment too long. Our eyes met, and there was a question there that hadn't been present before. But neither of us was brave enough to ask it out loud, so the moment passed, leaving a charged silence in its wake. That night, as we settled into what had become our sleeping position, Alex spoke into the darkness. Can I ask you something? Of course, I replied, my heart immediately picking up speed. Does this bother you? Being this close to me every night? Because if it does, we can stop. I've been sleeping better, so maybe I could try on my own again. I considered my answer carefully. It doesn't bother me, I said finally. Actually, I've been sleeping better too. It's nice having someone close. He was quiet for so long that I thought he might have fallen asleep. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, he whispered, I think I'm falling for you, Ethan. The world seemed to stop. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. Alex must have taken my silence as rejection because he started to pull away. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I shouldn't have said anything. We can just forget. I tightened my arm around him, keeping him in place. Don't, I said. Don't apologize. And don't move away. He went still. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying, I think I'm falling for you too. and it scares the hell out of me because I've never felt this way about a guy before, and you're my roommate, and what if it all goes wrong? But when you're here, like this, it feels right in a way I can't explain." He shifted then, propping himself up on one elbow to look at me in the dim light filtering through the window. "Really?" Instead of answering with words, I reached up and touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw with my fingertips. Then, gathering all my courage, I leaned up and kissed him. It was gentle and tentative at first, both of us unsure and exploring. But then he made a soft sound in the back of his throat and deepened the kiss, and suddenly there was nothing tentative about it at all. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" He laughed softly. "Because I thought you were straight, for one thing. And because I was afraid of ruining what we had. You're not just my roommate, Ethan. You're my best friend. You're mine too," I said, realizing as I said it how true it was. In the months we'd lived together, Alex had become the person I most wanted to talk to share things with, to be around. And for the record, I thought I was straight too. Or at least, I never questioned it much. But then there was you, and suddenly labels didn't seem to matter anymore. We talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. About when he first realized he was attracted to me, the third week after moving in, when I spent a whole Saturday helping an elderly neighbor move furniture and came back sweaty and exhausted but satisfied. About my fears and uncertainties. About what this meant for us as roommates and friends. Dawn was breaking by the time we finally fell asleep, tangled together in a way that was both new and somehow familiar. The transition from roommates to something more wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of awkwardness, of uncertainty about how to navigate this new territory. There were practical considerations too. Did we still need 2 bedrooms? What would we tell our friends and families? But there was also a deepening connection, a sense of rightness that made the challenges seem manageable. Our friends noticed the change almost immediately. My best friend Lily took one look at us at a group dinner and said, "Finally." The tension was killing us all. Alex's co-workers, who had only known him as perpetually exhausted, commented on how much more energetic and focused he seemed. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up," his boss told him, not knowing how literally Alex was taking that advice. Telling our families was more complicated. My parents were surprised but supportive after their initial shock wore off. "As long as you're happy," my mom said, and I could tell she meant it. Alex's family was more conservative, and we decided to give them time to adjust to the idea before planning any joint family gatherings. About 3 months into our relationship, we had our first real fight. It was over something trivial. I don't even remember what started it, but it escalated quickly, with both of us saying things we didn't mean. Alex stormed out of the apartment, and I was left alone, terrified that I'd ruined everything. When bedtime came and he still wasn't home, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing how accustomed I'd become to his presence, to the sound of his breathing and the weight of him against me. He came back around midnight, slipping quietly into the apartment. I heard him moving around in the living room, but didn't get up, unsure if he wanted space or if he would come to me. After what felt like an eternity, my bedroom door opened, and he stood there, looking as miserable as I felt. "I'm sorry," we both said simultaneously, and then laughed, the tension breaking. He came to the bed and sat on the edge. "I hate fighting with you," he said, "and I hate that I walked out instead of talking it through. I hate that I said those things," I replied, reaching for his hand. "I didn't mean them." "I know," he said, squeezing my hand. "I didn't mean what I said either. But Ethan, that's going to happen sometimes. We're going to fight. We're going to hurt each other's feelings. What matters is that we come back, that we talk it out, that we don't give up on this." I pulled him down to me, wrapping my arms around him. "I'm not giving up," I promised. "Not on us." That night, as he fell asleep with his head on my chest, I realized something profound. What had started as a simple act of kindness, letting my insomniac roommate use me as a human pillow, had evolved into something I never could have anticipated. It wasn't just about helping him sleep anymore. It was about connection, about vulnerability, about finding home in another person's arms. 6 months after that first night, Alex and I were sitting on our small balcony, watching the sunset with glasses of wine. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his glass and starting sentences only to trail off before completing them. "What's on your mind?" I finally asked. "You're being weird." He laughed, setting down his glass. Yeah, I guess I am. He took a deep breath. I've been thinking, my lease is up next month. My heart sank. Was he thinking of moving out? Had I misread everything about our relationship? Oh, was all I could manage to say. And I was wondering, he continued, not meeting my eyes, if maybe, instead of renewing it, we could look for a new place together. A place that would be ours from the beginning, not just yours that I moved into. A fresh start. Relief and joy flooded through me. I'd like that, I said, reaching for his hand. I'd like that a lot. He finally looked at me, his expression serious. I want to be clear about what I'm asking, Ethan. I'm not just talking about finding another apartment to share as roommates who happen to be dating. I'm talking about making a home together. About committing to this, to us, for the long haul. I felt a lump form in my throat. Are you proposing to me, Alex? He laughed, but there was nervousness in it. Not exactly. Not yet. But I am saying that I love you, and I want to build a life with you. And yes, someday, when we're both ready, I hope that will include marriage. If that's something you want to. I didn't hesitate. It is, I said. All of it. The new place, the commitment, the future together. I love you too, Alex. More than I ever thought possible. He leaned in and kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. When he pulled back, he was smiling. You know, he said, I haven't had a single night of insomnia since that first night with you. Really? Even when I'm not there. There had been a few nights we'd spent apart due to work trips or family obligations. He shook his head. Those nights are harder, he admitted. But knowing you're coming back, that I'll have your heartbeat to fall asleep to again, it's enough to keep the worst of the insomnia at bay. I pulled him close, wrapping my arms around him. Well, you won't have to worry about that in our new place. I'm not going anywhere. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I marveled at the journey that had brought us here. From strangers to roommates to friends to lovers to partners planning a future together. All because one night, my roommate whispered that he couldn't sleep unless he was on my chest. Sometimes, the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful destinations. And as Alex and I sat there, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, I knew without a doubt that this was exactly where I was meant to be, not just in this moment, but for all the moments to come. In his arms, I had found not only love, but also a sense of home I never knew I was missing. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever challenges life might bring our way, we would face them together, heart to heart, breath to breath, just as we had been since that very first night. Total _char_count, 18,676.